Now You Know BC is brought to you by Return It. Don't trash your empty beverage containers. Return them for the deposit refund.
Welcome to Now You Know BC. I'm Bob Kronbauer, also known as BC Bob, and on this show I introduce you to interesting people, places to go, things to see, things that have happened in the past. You will hear our collective stories. This week I'm telling you all about BC inventions, from medical instruments used on people's butts, my butt, to egg cartons, to a legendary drink from the 90s. British Columbians have dreamt up and patented a lot of memorable, mostly useful products over the years. Let's dig into some of them. Did you know that the surgeon who invented the gold standard for hemorrhoid treatment was once a UBC professor, and that they named the hemorrhoid device after themselves? It's true, and I need to warn you that this story largely revolves around my butt and the details of some fairly disturbing medical procedures that I've personally had done inside my butt. So if that makes you uncomfortable in any way, you might want to briefly change the channel. Get it? Briefly? I'm so sorry. In case you're lucky enough to not know this information already, let me fill you in on the different types of hemorrhoids that people get. There's actually two different kinds, and I've had them both. So consider me the closest thing to an expert you'll hear from on this subject. First, there's the normal type of hemorrhoids that are on the outside and which hurt really bad and itch. Oftentimes they'll bleed. Those ones can be treated using preparation H.
Burning, itching, but the pain's the worst. I should have used
new Preparation H cream. Burning, itching, plus maximum strength pain relief on contact. The most complete Preparation H relief ever. New Preparation H cream. Pain relief on contact.
And witch hazel at home. Warm baths, those help, but they sometimes get bad enough that you're gonna need to get surgery. I've been getting those ones since I was about 10 years old. They are not great. Again, a warning. This is about to get more gross, and it involves blood. Internal hemorrhoids are technically swollen veins, which turn into a sort of growth inside your rectum. They're sometimes painful, and they often bleed. The only reason I knew I had them was because my toilet bowl kept turning red every time I took a poop. So I went to the doctor, and he sent me to a butt doctor, and he looked up there, and he diagnosed me with them. Then he immediately performed the O'Regan method on me, right there in his office. I didn't even have to wait and make another appointment. Now, before I explain how this method works, I have to tell you about the table that greets you when you go to my butt doctor's office on Broadway in Vancouver. It's a low table that has 8 very sharp edges and signs taped to it that encourage you not to sit on it. It's almost as if it's some sort of test. Like if you end up sitting on this thing that will no doubt hurt your butt, even if you didn't show up with butt issues, which you most definitely did, maybe they charge you a fee because it's your fault. I don't know. So for the sake of argument, let's say an internal hemorrhoid is like the tip of my finger. The way that doctors have been treating these for decades is by banding them. Exactly as it sounds, they install a little elastic band onto the base of the hemorrhoid. That cuts off the blood flow to the thing. And I warned you, this is gonna get worse. According to Dr. O'Regan, and this is a quote, within 5 to 7 days, the withered hemorrhoid falls off, and then eventually you just poop it out. The local doctor improved on the banding system in 1997, and it's now used worldwide. This is the little gun thing that he used, and it suctions the hemorrhoid and then installs these rubber bands. What also makes it better than the way that they did it before was it can be done with one hand by a doctor, and it installs multiple bands on one site at a time. And it's disposable. I can tell you with absolute certainty that the method works, but some people, like me, may have to go in a few times to get the procedure done before they fully go away. If you're embarrassed about your butt issues, don't be. Just go see your doctor. If I can go on TV and tell you this incredibly wild story, you can schedule an appointment. Each week I show you an artifact that I think is an important part of BC's history, and this is a big one, the patent for the very first paper egg cartons. They were invented in 1911 by a newspaper publisher named Joseph Hoyle from Smithers. He had published a paper called The Interior News in the Bulkley Valley when he was made aware of a dispute between a local farmer and a hotel that they supplied eggs to. The beef was that the eggs kept showing up broken, and the customer was upset about that, so this guy decided to try to fix the problem for good. And before his invention, eggs were transported in wooden boxes, like this one, which is in the collection at the Bulkley Valley Museum. This one held 11 eggs, and you'd use pieces of cardboard to separate them and try to keep them from breaking. His new device was first released in 1911, and he supplied it to his friends and neighbors for a few years before advertising it for sale to people in his newspaper in 1915. He applied for and received a patent in Canada a couple years later for his invention that, today seems fairly basic. It was a cardboard rectangle that had little V-shaped pockets for each eggs. It folded flat, making it easy to store and ship it when it was empty. A couple years after he applied for the patent, he sold his newspaper, moved to Vancouver, and started producing them here. At first, they were so popular that he couldn't get them produced fast enough, so he invented a machine that made them more efficiently. And in their heyday, they sold more than 200 million cartons a year and eventually spread to Mexico, Europe, and South Africa. Joseph Coyle died in 1972 at exactly 100 years old, which was more than old enough to watch as other people came in and improved on his invention with plastic and styrofoam and other materials. But it started here in BC. We're going to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Brian Anderson from Science World about some other inventions. Welcome back to Now You Know BC. Today we're talking about BC Inventions. My guest is Brian Anderson, the Director of Performance and Fun Times at Science World. As you know, Science World runs as a charity, as a hands-on science center here in Vancouver, and engages learners across the province in STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, art and design, and math. Technically STEAM, but who's counting? Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
The title Director of Performance and Fun Times is the most interesting title I've ever heard. Who invented that?
That one, it came out because as a performance lead, I train all of the performers who do the fun shows at Science World. We do little rehearsal sessions that we call Brian Fun Times. And so coming out of that, they said, we need a title for you, so why don't you be Performance and Fun Times? And it kind of lands because in addition to what I do in the building, when weird random things come, it's like the fun times. Like we want to play with Cirque du Soleil. We want to have some wrestlers come in and do the science of wrestling. So
got it.
Yeah.
Cool. What's the best part of the job for you?
Getting to do new things. You get to meet new people. You get to learn about what they do. We were talking to some folks from Cirque du Soleil recently that they do an acrobatic act. They hang from their hair. And just the invention of what is the knot you use for that so it doesn't slip out and you fall down.
They literally just use their hair?
They
There's
literally
not something in
they
there?
said it was ironic that Brian was the one asking them about hair, but
So I didn't even think of it.
but yeah, it wraps around the hair and there's a little ring and a rigging thing there, but the hair is all it's attaching them to the ring.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in this type of work?
I have a background both in science and in theater. So I did a degree in computer science, physics, and math. And then I've always been a bit of a theater nerd, and this is just the ideal place where my world overlaps.
That is fantastic. And you've been there for 8 years. Kids are some of the most creative people out there.
They are.
And you have a program where they invent stuff?
They've got all kinds of things where they do innovation. We have a gallery called the Tinkering Space. And tinkering is all about iteration, the design process. So I have an idea for something, this little ramp we have out here. If you want to build your own little skateboard ramp, I'll build it and I'll test it and say, what if I change this variable? What if I make this one a little higher, make this one a little wider? So it's all about just recognizing inventions don't happen the first time. You have an idea, you try it out.
That is fascinating. Have I said fascinating enough this interview?
Can I talk fun times? One other thing?
Yeah.
Our fun buddy who's staring at me over the shoulder
Yes,
here?
the Jolly Jumper.
We're talking Jolly Jumper. I got to ride in a giant Jolly Jumper once.
What?
We actually, for an invention exhibit we had a few years ago, they built for one day a human adult-sized Jolly Jumper.
Let's talk about some other BC inventions. What have you got for me?
Well, there's a lot of different ones that are out there.
Caulking gun?
Caulking gun is a great one there. Yeah.
Who invented that?
I don't recall.
But it was invented here.
It was invented here in BC.
There's lots of things that
There's
were
lots of
invented
great
here.
ones there. London fog was a BC invention.
Why was it a BC invention? It's like the California roll. There's an ongoing argument about whether or not
It came from
Chef
California.
Tojo
Yeah.
created it here or somebody in California created it, which, you know, lots of people lean towards California because it's in the name.
Yeah.
But
This is Chef Tojo.
Hi, I'm sous chef Tojo. Okay, everybody eat cucumber, avocado, and cook club. Just I change this preparation. Just raw. I didn't call it California roll. We call inside of roll. People starting with California roll. Oh, this is very good.
There's a lot of good like high-tech ones as well, like science in BC. There's huge technological things going on. A company called Acuitas made a nanoparticle delivery system that was used in lots of vaccines.
I don't
things
even
like
know
that.
what that means.
It's like a biotech company. It allows these
Nanoparticle delivery
nanoparticles
system.
that allow basically the vaccine work good.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. There's an exhibit on right now, and there's lots of inventions. The exhibit is not about inventions, it's
No.
extreme sports, but there's so much innovation and stuff happening within that.
Exactly. You've got things like the wingsuits, the people who like jump off of the Squamish Chief and they actually fly and things. People developing those, like the different materials you have to have in there. Materials engineer for rock climbing, things like that. You want things that are nice and strong. Even things like, again, our little skateboards there. Skateboard technology's gone up a lot over the last 20, 50 years.
And even new sports themselves, I consider inventions. Parkour
Yeah.
was not a sport. It wasn't anything when I was in high school even. So in my lifetime, things have been created. The wingsuit was created probably during my lifetime. Maybe people were doing it before, but
Yeah, parkour's got a lot of interesting science because there's the innovation of like how do you do the different jumps and things there. But there's also the psychology. A lot of the sports is the psychology of inventing new ways to train yourself, to train different people.
Right.
Look at your tolerance for risk, which is one of the things you can do in the exhibit.
Yeah, what is that?
It's there's a researcher who looks at like a whole bunch of different categories of risk, and then you can come up with a score out of 40 that like this is how risky I am as a human.
A score out of 40. What did you score?
I'm a 21. I'm kind of a middle of the road.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
But yeah, each of the different athletes and performers you see interviewed on the videos in the exhibit, you list their scores. You can compare yourself. And
What's the highest?
40 out of 40, I think, is the top. I think the
Whoa.
biggest one I saw in the interviews was a guy at 37, and he just does all kinds of slacklining and jumping off things.
47?
Oh, sorry, no, 37 out of 40.
I was
him.
going to say off the charts.
Off the chart stuff there. Now, I was amused by where I do risk and where I don't. Like, I'll ride a roller coaster, but then they ask you, would you try a new item off the menu? I'm like, I'm a little risky. I'll stick with my hamburger.
Amazing. Okay, well, you can visit this exhibit at Science World, all sorts of innovations beyond it. We're going to go to the street where Nina is talking to some people right now, getting their thoughts. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go to Nina on the street. She's talking to people about inventions. Nina.
I'm Nina Savage, and this is Street Survey. Today we're not on the street. Instead, we're in Science World, asking people about their ideas for inventions. Do you have any ideas for a new invention?
I have a couple. An app that's available to residents that go to grocery stores. It organizes each area, produce, like different aisles, all in like the time savings space.
I work in a cardiac unit, so like Bluetooth heart monitors that aren't from the 70s.
And it'd be cool if you had a 3D printer that like linked up with different suppliers and companies like IKEA or Kohler or something like that. And if you bought the 3D printer, you could always have access to 3D print like missing parts.
A table that can transform itself
Into
like a different type of table.
a different type of table, or like a bed, a table, bed, chair, everything.
Like a lint roller?
Yeah.
Picture it the size of a broom, right?
Okay.
Big lint roller for your bed.
Oh, no
Yeah.
more washing your sheets.
No,
Just-
well, you should still probably wash your sheets. But
Something that has to do with like helping society and humans.
If you have a gas can you want to fill up, there's a walk-up gas station filling spot. That way, like if you're filling up your car, those can go quick. And then there's a walk-up gas station filling spot for canisters.
Alarm clock that like hits me in the head to wake up and like lift me up as I wake up.
But, big lint roller for dogs, or if you're a hairy person.
Or crumbs if you eat.
Yeah, crumbs.
Patent that. Get on it right now.
Don't steal that. It's mine.
So what would the benefit be of flying cars?
Get places faster and more conveniently.
I've told to a few of my coworkers and they're like, I don't think that's a great idea. I was like, that could be good.
I think it's a great idea. I think you need to become an inventor. Self-title.
I wish.
Tim the Inventor.
We'll see. Maybe.
So what's your name?
Logan.
Nice to meet you, Logan. Do you have a favorite invention here at Science World?
Yes.
What would that be? Okay. Logan, can I ask you one more? One more question? We had a great day here at Science World, and we heard some amazing ideas for new inventions. This is Street Survey, and I'm Nina Savage.
We're going on a BC road trip to Chilliwack out in the Fraser Valley. It's not just a place to stop for gas on your way to the interior, and it's not just the name of an old band. It's a place where I lived for a couple years, and which it has a lot going for it. You should spend some time here. It's on the traditional territory of more than 10 Stalo First Nations, and the newest thing in town that's got everybody's attention is a place called District 1881. It's at a noteworthy intersection called Five Corners, which is historically the center of town where all the streets come together. The developers describe it as a neighborhood of a distinctive architecture and historic buildings crisscrossed by pedestrian alleys. I describe it as an outdoor shopping center like the ones you see in Southern California. It's got some housing attached to it, and it looks and feels like you're on the set of a Harry Potter film. There's a bunch of restaurants, a couple breweries, and a hotel where there's no front desk, and you just check in like it's an Airbnb with a robot concierge. I have stayed there, I recommend it. The second thing you need to check out in Chilliwack, it isn't typically a tourist attraction. In fact, it's not meant to be attraction at all, but it is. It's the first and only walk-in egg vending machine I've ever visited. It's located on Brightside Farms property, and you're gonna have to drive there. There, they've got eggs that are the product of the chickens that live right outside and next door. They've got a bunch of other local groceries like jams, pies, milk, ice cream, lots of local stuff. You order on a little touch screen, pay with a credit card, and a lock on the door of where your product is pops open, a little door. Grab it and go. The third thing I recommend in Chilliwack is a visit to the Great Blue Heron Nature Reserve. It's a 325-acre public park where there's a bunch of trails to walk down and look for birds, beavers, other wildlife, and the park is actually super new. The Department of National Defense used the area for training for decades. In fact, they built most of the lagoons, but they eventually gave it all over to the city of Chilliwack. The city opened it up to the public in 2002, and now hundreds of thousands of people visit it every year. It's home to one of the largest breeding colonies of blue herons in BC, and it's definitely worth a visit. Now we're gonna go to break. When we come back, I'm gonna tell you some more stories. Welcome back to the show. Today I'm telling you all about BC Inventions. We're gonna do a giveaway, but first a story about a super unique drink that may have been part of your childhood. Did you know that the 90s drink Orbitz was invented in BC? It's true, it came out in Vancouver in 1997, and it was produced by the same company that made Clearly Canadian, another very 90s beverage that also came in an oddly shaped bottle. Now, if you're not familiar with Orbitz, it was super sweet, it wasn't carbonated, and there were these little edible gelatinous balls that stayed impossibly suspended in it no matter what you did to it. It looked like a weird science experiment or sort of like boba or bubble tea, but not. The secret to the floating balls was an ingredient called gellan gum, which was first approved as a food additive in Japan in 1988. Other countries followed suit, and it's now used as a thickener and a stabilizer in different foods around the world. I don't know any that have it suspended in the product like Orbitz did. It's pretty much an invisible ingredient. Orbitz was far from invisible in the late 90s. It was a massive novelty drink that everybody wanted to try. But that novelty wore off fast. To many people, it feels like these were around for our entire childhoods, these drinks. But it was only in production for about a year, from 1997 to 1998. The only place you'll find it these days is in antique shops and on Facebook Marketplace. I tried to buy this one so I could show it to you. It sold really quick. One other interesting thing that Clearly Canadian did, just 1 year before they released Orbits, was an attempt at a hostile takeover of their drink rival in the Okanagan, Sunripe. Sunripe was originally started by a group of orchardists right after the Second World War. It was less of a corporation and more of a co-op model that existed so that the fruit growers who were members of it had a place where they could just send their apples to and get them turned into juices and ciders and other products instead of having to sell them. The idea was that by buying them, they'd be able to double their revenue and gain access to Sunripe's massive bottling facility, which 400 people worked at. In the end, the takeover failed. They couldn't buy enough co-op shares in order to gain control of it. Then Sunripe ended up going public on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Then it was bought by billionaire Jimmy Pattison. And then finally it was sold to a company in Quebec. Clearly Canadian struggled a lot over the years, apparently due to lack of good management and other issues. They disappeared from the market for a while, but they came back in 2015. You might be surprised to learn that this product is still in stores today, and their headquarters are located in Toronto. And now you know. I'm giving away a year's supply of this BC invention, Smart Sweets Low Sugar Candy. The company was founded in Vancouver by a young entrepreneur named Tara Bosch back in 2015, which is when they got their first piece of press ever. It was in my old newspaper, Vancouver is Awesome. It was only a single paragraph in a roundup article about young founders of new local companies to watch out for, but Tara still brings it up with me as a huge spark for her in the early days of starting her business. Since launching 10 years ago, Smart Sweets has gone on to become a massive global company, and they're still headquartered here. Their mission is to get people to stop eating so much processed sugar, but still be able to eat delicious candy. Low sugar isn't something that they invented, but they continue to innovate in the space and are without a doubt the leader. Can you name another low sugar candy brand, let alone one from BC? Kick Sugar, Keep Candy is their tagline, and I want to give you a year's supply of this stuff. It's 72 pouches. To enter to win, just sign up for my weekly newsletter at bcbob.ca, where I'll be randomly selecting a winner. And this is not a year's supply. This is just 20 packs. We're giving you 72. That's the show for this week. Big thanks to Brian Anderson and Science World, Tara and Beth and everybody at Smart Sweets, Nina Savage and Derek Wong, and our editor, of the good folks at CHEK TV, my butt doctor who shall not be named, his name is Eric. And lastly, most importantly, thank you to the employees of Hunter's Store in Vernon who sold me and all of my friends all the best candy and drinks like Orbits and Jolt Cola in the 80s and 90s. They're still operating to this day. I hope you learned something this week, and that if you've got an idea for an invention, you've been sparked to get a patent for it or make it the next big thing. Just go out there and do it. For more stories, you can follow me on Instagram and watch more episodes for free of this show on CHEK Plus. Check out my merch at bcbob.ca, and I'll see you next week when we'll explore more stories about this great province of ours. And now you know BC.
Now you know BC is brought to you by Return It. Don't trash your empty beverage containers, return them for the deposit refund.